this video, we're going to talk about how to find the dollars to buy real estate. The first thing that I want to let you know is that most people want the answer. They want to say, go to this bank, go here, go there. Okay, it's not that simple. So now it can be, but I need to walk you through what I think are the three parts first so that you're prepared for a high rate of success for getting the money that you need. And the reason we use money and not debt or lending is because money doesn't really care what the name of it is. You're going to need equity and you're going to need debt. You're going to need a mortgage. You're going to need an investor, whatever you want to call it, it's money. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the business plan. Now, the reason why this is important is because this is what the bank or the investor is going to want. So the business plan is your opportunity. And by the way, you don't actually even have to own the property or even have bought the property to put this together. Most of my business plans are all done before we close. Okay? But the business plan, what it does is it tells the individual, whoever it is, man or woman, tall or short, doesn't really matter. All you need to know is that you've taken the precautions to figure out what components are inside of that business plan. It's the most important thing, okay? So what are some of the things inside of the business plan? The very first thing that most people do is they flip right to the cash. So usually you can have all this fluff in a business plan and they go right to the numbers, okay? That's what I do. That's what most sophisticated investors do. That's what the banker's going to do. And I'll tell you why in a minute, okay? That's a very, very important piece to have in a business plan. Another piece to have in there is the team. So they're going to want to know, how did you underwrite the numbers and who's on the team, okay? The team is so important. If you're a team of one, you probably have a problem, okay? What you want is you want to have a team, okay? So let's say you're doing a rehab. You're definitely reaching out to a contractor or a team of people to help you with that rehab. You need to have all the numbers buttoned up. You need to have bids. You need to have everything inside of the plan, or at least the numbers in the plan, so that if you're asked, you can produce it and say, this is the bid for the roof, or this is the bid to remodel the kitchen, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, you have to have all that buttoned up. Okay? And then the last piece is what I call the execution. Okay? So you have to have the numbers, you have to have the team, then you have to have the execution. They're all very different disciplines, but you need to have all that inside of the business plan. And the reason this is so important is because now you're speaking investors and lenders' language. They're saying, okay, this person's coming into me with a piece of real estate. It could be a ground-up construction deal. It could be a renovation deal. It could be a vacant building. It doesn't really matter. But you have to have a plan around it. It requires a lot of thought, and there's a lot of moving parts. Okay? So you put your team together, and then the execution is the most important thing. And here's why. The next piece to the business plan is what I call the actual deal itself. So we'll call this the deal. The deal is what you're willing to do to get that money, okay? That's the most important thing. So what is the deal? What is the split? What is the return? What does the investor get? What do I get? What, all those things. What does the bank get, okay? All that stuff is negotiated inside of this. And if you're not clear on this, you're going to get hosed in these meetings, okay? You need to know exactly what it is that you want. And you also you will find out very quickly whether it's unreasonable or reasonable. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not erring too much for the equity or the investor or the bank. You want to make sure that there's a little bit in there and that it's performance-based. The deal itself is so important because you can put a business plan around something and do a lot of work, and at the end of the deal, be left with nothing if you don't know how to negotiate all this kind of stuff. And so the last piece is what I call the pitch. So this is the point where you're actually in front of the investor or the lender. So you start with a business plan. You figure out what you can do inside of the deal. So this is where Ross, my partner, and I talk a lot. Almost every day we're talking about what kind of deal you want to offer. What are you willing to give up? How much money you want to put in? What's your split? what does the investor want? What does the lender want? Okay, and as the lenders come at you, you need to know what your flexibility is in all these areas. Okay, and that's in the pitch. And so now, let's say you have your business plan together, you understand your deal, you understand how far you can go and how little you can go, and now you're into what I call the pitch. Now the pitch happens in multiple things. Let's say you're trying to raise $1 million. Okay, so the pitch might be to 10 or 20 or 30 investors, okay, all different. And those people are going to have very different views on what they want for their money, okay? So you need to be crystal clear on the deal. In other words, you're going to walk in with something and say, I want $100,000 from you, and they say, I'll give it to you, but I want 10% of my money. The next investor might say, I'll give it to you, but I want 6% of my money, okay? You can't be offering different deals for different investors, as an example. You also need to understand what the banks are going to say. The banks are going to say, I'll give you 60% leverage. I'll give you 70% leverage. I'll give you 80% leverage, okay? All have different interest rates on them. Also, all of that is very complex, but it all has to do with the deal. And that's why you have to be crystal clear on what it is you want. Because if you're paying an investor too much for their money, then it's going to screw up your business plan. If you're paying a lender too much for their loan, it's going to screw up your business plan. It reduces cash flow.